Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very senior academician from Texas, USA, Mr. Moshe Vardi. Moshe, welcome to the show.
It's good to be with you.
Thank you. Moshe, or I should say Professor Moshe, is a professor of computer science at Rice University, USA. He's an author of two books and has over 700 articles to his credit. And he has been recognized, awarded, and felicitated globally. So today, Moshe, after such an amazing track record that you have, today we'll focus on information technology. And let me start by asking you, um, or before I get into this, tell me a little bit about your own background and what took you to the US.
Um, I discovered computers almost accidentally at age 16.
Okay.
There was an advertisement in the paper about a programming course in a local Tel Aviv university.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly what intrigued me, but I was somehow intrigued because at that point, we're talking about many years ago, there was computers were not on people's mind. They were in
Correct.
what we call the glass house, big corporation,
Yeah.
university has a mainframe. But somehow I was intrigued, and I took this 2 week programming course, and it was love at first sight, as they say.
Mm.
And so I went and got my education in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel at the time, in particular, was such a small country that the feeling was that if you want an academic career, you need to go abroad to broaden yourself, so to
Mm.
speak.
Mm.
Today it's less necessary because Israel is a powerhouse in computer
Absolutely.
science. But
Absolutely.
at the time it was you need to go abroad, and most people used to go to United States. So I went to United States to do a postdoc.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to Stanford, but I met my wife in Palo Alto, and
Mm-hmm.
the rest, as they say, is history.
History. Wonderful. And what made you stay in academics rather than in business or industry or a startup?
So I did go after I did my postdoc. I did go to IBM Research,
Mm-hmm.
partly because I lived in time in Palo Alto, and IBM was just down the road in San Jose, and I did part of my postdoc at IBM Research, so I applied there, and I got the job as a what's called RSM, Research Staff Members, and then ultimately I became a department manager there,
Mm-hmm.
and then IBM's business hit the rocks.
Okay.
And when it was become very clear that doing industrial research is wonderful when the company is very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
But when business is very tight, they're tightening everywhere, and it became somehow it seemed that it was not a good long-term bet. And
Mm-hmm.
then I decided after about 10 years in industry, decided it was time to move to academia, and it was one of my best career decision ever. So I have no
Fantastic.
regrets.
Fantastic. So now
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the world today. And my first question to you is what are some of the challenges being faced in the digital age?
I would say is that we launch a revolution, and very often people who launch a revolution don't realize what they have launched.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the accidental revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, oh, this is a wonderful invention. This is great. Microprocessor, this is great. Oh, internet, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have really launched is an astounding revolution in terms of its depth,
Correct.
because we have taken a concept that used to be very nebulous,
Mm-hmm.
information.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask people, in the before Shannon even, what is information? It was what information is.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to quantify love,
Correct. Correct.
compassion. We have lots of things we
Yes.
refer to, but we don't think of
Well
them
said.
quantitatively.
Well said. Mm-hmm.
And we turn information into something that can be made quantitative,
Mm-hmm.
can be measured, and can be processed. Okay, information now can be processed.
Mm-hmm.
So today, the phrase information processing is a bit kind of old-fashioned term, information processing.
mm,
But the fact that you can process information, you take this nebulous concept
mm,
and process it. So if you look at kind of what are the things that shape humanity,
mhm,
then of course there was that they would develop language.
mhm,
Okay, we don't know exactly when this started. People debated exactly 100 or 1,000 years ago. We developed language,
mhm,
and then we developed much closer, very recent in cosmic timescale. It was just yesterday,
mhm.
about 6,000 years ago. Maybe we developed writing.
Correct.
Okay, and then in the Middle Ages we developed, the print,
Mhm,
and kind of this is the next. And all of these were huge, huge revolution that changed
correct.
humanity. Humanity before, humanity after. It's a different thing. And
Mm,
now we have launched yet another one, and we are not any better than other inventor in foreseeing the consequences of our invention. There is a beautiful story that I like
yeah.
about physicists in the early 19th century in Cavendish Lab in Cambridge, UK.
Mhm,
They discovered the electron.
mhm.
A beautiful scientific discovery. They have a cocktail party to celebrate it, and the
Okay.
toast to the electron, which will never be of any use to anyone.
Okay.
Okay, and now we laugh at them, right?
Yes.
But we have not been much different than them. We did not foresee what we are launching,
What you've unleashed.
what we have unleashed. In fact,
Correct.
there is a quote I think attributed to, I think it was to Samuel Morse when he
Mhm,
invented telegraph and the first message was sent, which is really kind of part of information processing. We think of it
mm,
starting with Shannon, but the telegraph actually
correct.
and the telephone were a way of taking sound and taking information and
Mm,
digitizing it and transmitting it,
very,
right?
very
So
true.
we had previous thing. It didn't start with necessarily with Shannon. Shannon showed us how to measure it, but the ideas started before. But I think it was Samuel Morse who said, "What have we wrought?
Mm,
What have we done? You
mm,
know." And now as a society, we are really, I would say today, the biggest challenge to society is dealing with this revolution that we launched.
mm,
And computer scientists in particular are having a hard time because we used to think, first of all, we think, well, we're playing games, we're
mhm,
programming, it's nice puzzles, nice, cool devices, and we have changed the world for the better and for the worse. I mean, for
mhm.
the better is you and I can sit now on the other two sides of the globe and have this conversation, and it's not quite like being in the same room, but
Mhm.
it's a pretty good approximation. Okay,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
think of what would happen with the pandemic if we did not have Zoom. I
Correct.
mean, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yet, Moshe, when you look at it, while you and I are speaking here, we seem to be continuously moving into a more and more complex set of technologies. Whether and I'd love to get your perspective on the metaverse. Tomorrow, you and I could be sitting and talking in the metaverse, but metaverse is there, artificial intelligence is there, machine learning is there, robotics is there. How are all these going to change the world? What is your perspective?
Well, I think somewhere there we have lost track of what technology should be about.
Mhm.
Okay, and the answer is that technology was always supposed to help people.
Mm.
Okay, and Leibniz, when he conceived of the what you call the reasoning calculus,
Mhm.
it will be like glasses for the brain.
Mm.
It was all about really human augmentation.
Mm.
Okay, and somewhere there we lost track of this, and we fell in love for technology's sake.
Mhm.
So now we seem to be rushing into the metaverse. And you
Mm.
ask, wait a minute, what human problem is it trying to solve right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you look at a company like Facebook,
Mm.
which is uh, one of the sources, I mean, it's been a major player in the current ills of societal ills. And we
Mhm.
had We had the leakage of the Facebook papers
Mhm.
just last fall,
Correct.
and which showed that even Facebook knew about all the societal damage that they are causing.
Mhm.
But hey, it brings the money, so we can't stop it. Okay, you have
Mhm.
to continue
Mhm.
because that's what brings the money.
Yeah.
And so they have, instead of telling us, look, when the metaverse will cure what we have done before, mea culpa, we are very sorry to what we have done,
Mm.
but now we have ideas to how to repair it, how to mend it.
Mm.
No, now we have more technology. And the answer is, what human problem are they trying to solve? None of that stuff,
Mm.
okay?
Mm.
It's profit driven, and we are all sucker for technology. I'm not better than anyone else in this
Mm.
case. You have a cool new technology. Wow, let's use it.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the consequences later.
Mm.
And in the meantime, seeing, we have the United States, which you can probably describe as the mother of modern democracy,
Correct.
and democracy here is in serious peril.
Mhm.
And it's complicated. Historian will spend now decades trying to analyze what happened to this country.
Correct.
But
Correct.
I think it will be very hard to not to conclude that technology played a key role there.
Mm.
And one of the main things technology did is called societal polarization. So
Mm.
for democratic society to function, there has to be a sense of shared destiny. Okay, we are in it together.
Mm.
Okay,
But Moshe,
yes,
coming back, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but coming back
yeah,
to the metaverse, you
yeah.
know, uh, you give me the example of the cocktail party when the electron was found, and you said that we don't really know what, at that time, they didn't know what an electron could do.
Yeah.
Is the metaverse a party that's too early, or do you see something significant happening in the future?
So when are we talking about? Somewhere probably maybe 15 years ago, so I don't remember exactly.
Mhm.
We had Second Life,
Correct.
and I was among the people. Oh, we're going to build a virtual campus.
Mhm.
Let's do that, and people will come and they'll visit the virtual campus.
Mm.
And one of the I remember a point in which I said, "Oh, four-letter word."
Mhm.
A female colleague of mine came to me very disturbed.
Mhm.
What happened? Someone on Second Life dropped his pants in front of me on
Okay.
Second Life.
Mm.
Okay? She was almost as disturbed as this is happening in real life. She
Right.
found it very, very disturbing. And we
Mm.
realized, what are the rules? At least, for example, on in real life, okay, in this physical presence, if I drop my pants,
Mhm.
it's called indecent exposure.
Correct.
Okay, it's a
Mhm.
criminal activity. Okay, indecent exposure.
Mhm.
What happened in the metaverse if somebody dropped their pants?
Mm.
What's going on?
We
What are
probably
the
have to find
rules?
a metaverse policeman.
Yeah, we need a metaverse police. Who is responsible? What are the rules in the
Correct.
metaverse? And the answer is we don't know. There are no rules.
Yeah.
It's kind of the wild west.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I think we need to really take it, think very, very hard. What is
Mm.
the purpose of the metaverse? What is the purpose other than the Facebook wants to make more money
Mhm.
and are trying to distract attention from the scandal that we went
Mm.
through? Okay.
Mm.
And the answer is I have no idea. Everybody's telling me we need to go to the metaverse.
Sure.
Wait a minute.
Sure. Sure.
What is the rationale?
Mm.
What problem are we trying to solve?
So, one of the other things that people talk to me about the metaverse, and I'm not an expert like you, but there is this whole issue of privacy and personal space that each one of us, irrespective, you and I probably the same vintage, but even the younger people are very fiercely protecting. What happens to privacy in an open platform like the metaverse?
So the paradox of privacy
Mhm.
is that we are giving away our privacy.
Mm.
But I keep going to talk about what the Greek called the sand heap paradox.
Mhm.
And the sand heap paradox was really about failure of induction. They say if you
Mm.
take one grain of sand, you put it in front of you, it's
Mm.
one grain of sand. You add
Mm.
another grain of sand. And everybody can say if something is not a heap and you add one grain, it's not a heap.
Mhm.
But you and I know that if you put enough grains of sand, eventually this will become a heap.
Correct.
So when does the heap become a heap? And so we are willing to give away tiny bits of information about ourselves, one bit at a time. It's like, imagine that I'm willing to reveal each time. Let's suppose you say, okay, every time you reveal a pixel of some photograph, you get $1. That's a
Right.
pixel. Of course, if it was a nude photograph, and I reveal enough pixels, then my nude picture is on the web. Okay, and I don't know, but my body is not beautiful enough for me to want it to be it on the
Yes.
web.
Correct.
So, but the point is, because we are giving our privacy one pixel at a time, I click like. Oh, what's the big deal? I click like. Okay, I shared every time, every tiny activity, every grain of sand reveal tiny bit, an epsilon about ourselves. And one of the things that's very hard for the human mind to comprehend is the accumulated impact of very, very small actions. For example, that's why I know very intelligent people, they have a hard time with the concept of a human cause climate change. Because they say, okay, I drove to the supermarket. It's nothing. How much can it affect the atmosphere? The answer is, of course, each one of us by itself is a tiny contribution.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
collectively we have changed over now since the Industrial Revolution over about 150 years. We have changed the climate. The same way we give away one pixel information, one pixel at a time, one bit at a time, and we have no idea what do they know about us. What picture does emerge?
Correct.
You know, who knows Moshe Vardi better, Moshe Vardi or Facebook? Because I live in this manufactured reality in myself, stuck in my own self-image. Facebook see everything I do. Okay. So now what's the other side? What do they do with it? They then influence us by putting advertisement, by putting content that they decided we should see. So they're influencing us again one bit at a time. Each bit of influence by itself is nothing. But when you spend a lot of time on Google, on Facebook, and you see what they want you to see,
Yeah.
what is the accumulated impact? So what happens is we end up giving away heaps of privacy and for free, but what we are paying is being exposed to heaps of influence.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And
So,
now we have a society that is being polarized, because if you are perceived liberal, Facebook wants you to stay engaged. So
correct.
they will show you more the content you like. If you're conservative, you'll see the other kind of content. And so we are creating these what people call filter bubbles. And now the people from the other side are not just, well, my esteemed opponents. Your opinion of them keeps going lower and lower. And the notion of shared destiny is gradually eroding as we speak. And so, I mean, people don't realize how close the United States was on January 6th of 2021 to losing its democracy.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
You're right.
it was a very small number of people with some bold action managed to stave a disaster.
Correct. Well said. Well said. So I'm now going to ask you another question, because you are a computer science guru. You know the digital world. I mean, you're teaching it, you're reading it, you're aware of it. What are the 3 predictions that you would make that we should watch out for in the digital economy?
So I'm much better at looking at the past and trying
Okay.
to reflect about the past and making about predictions. There is, I think, a Danish expression that says predictions are difficult, especially about the future.
Okay.
Okay. I think that rather than make a prediction, I would say we are now at a kind of an inflection point in terms of we have, as I said, disruptive technology, and we also have a huge concentration of power.
Yeah.
And in some sense, if you look especially in the United States, 1981 was a pivotal year in the history of this country
Correct.
for 3 things. Number one, I came here as a postdoc.
Mm-hmm.
This is a joke.
Yeah.
But
No,
more
no, good. Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was elected,
Mm-hmm.
was inaugurated as president,
Mm-hmm.
was elected in
Mm-hmm.
1980, was inaugurated
Yeah.
as a president,
Mm-hmm.
and the PC was introduced in
Mm-hmm.
1981.
Okay.
Okay, and of course, the PC before that there were other computers, but the PC was when personal computers went mainstream, when the
Correct.
business a business tool. Okay, and so it started a wave of technology on one hand,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time Reagan introduced or made the standard, the reigning dogma became neoliberalism,
Mm-hmm.
which is let the market, laissez-faire, let the market decide on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have had no regulation and exploding technology,
Mm-hmm.
and now we are seeing the consequences of this.
Okay.
And so now, people are realizing that having, on one hand, disruptive technology with no, what so to speak, guardrail, with no rules,
Yeah.
okay, and also allowing huge concentration of power.
Mm-hmm.
When you wonder how did Google become so big, the
Mm-hmm.
answer is they have bought dozens and dozens of companies because one of the liberalization was antitrust.
Correct.
Okay, in fact, the last serious antitrust action by the government against tech company
Mm-hmm.
was Microsoft, and they've lost the case, even though Microsoft have tamed itself after that. Today, Microsoft is considered one of the good players in a big tech.
Absolutely.
But but in fact, if without the lawsuit, even against Microsoft, Google would not have existed because Microsoft would have bought it early on.
Mm-hmm.
But Google and Facebook have bought dozens of companies with
Correct.
no government saying, well, wait a minute, we shouldn't have this
Mm-hmm.
concentration of power.
Mm-hmm.
So we have disruptive technology, little regulation,
Mm-hmm.
and huge concentration of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are realizing this is a very combustible mixture.
Correct.
And there are more and more, the European Union is a forefront of trying to regulate it, and it's a large enough market that it will affect. And I think more and more you see more and more talk in the United States. Actually, this is one issue. There seems to be some kind of almost a bipartisan agreement.
Mm-hmm.
The too powerful industry is not good for democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other hand, this is by now a huge industry, incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly now because the stock market has gone up and down, but
Yeah.
couple of months ago, I calculated the market capitalization of the big, we call the big five, okay, which is Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And market capitalization at the time, in maybe around February, was over $10 trillion.
Wow.
Okay, so you have a very large and powerful industry,
Mm-hmm.
and they can hire tons of lobbyists. They can put tons of money into political campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And who will win? The people
Correct.
or big tech?
Big
And
tech always. Yeah.
I think this is now one of these, I would say, epochal struggle, really for the soul of democracy. And I would say is from my point of view, it's also a struggle for the soul of the discipline. What is computing about?
Mm-hmm.
Whom are we serving? Are we end up even in academia essentially serving the big tech machinery, producing, because now most of my students, where do they end up? They end up in big tech.
Correct.
So I'm really producing the cannon fodder for big tech to continue its expansion.
Well said.
And so I think we are in an epic struggle now for democracy and for the soul of the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And who will win? I don't know. I hope that in the movie it is much more satisfying when the good guys wins at the end.
I know.
But also, what is the prize? Okay, so World War II, the good guys won at the end, right?
True.
But we can say, oh, there was a happy end because the
Mm-hmm.
human toll was just
Absolutely.
incalculable.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
this is now an epic struggle. I hope the good guys will win.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you go to war, you start by digging graves.
Correct. 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 Absolutely right. So, Moshe, On that note, I think we've run out of time now. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I would have loved to just carry on talking to you because of you're such a fascinating speaker, and you have such vast knowledge about the entire technology space. Maybe I'll set up another time to speak to you on some other
Any,
subjects.
anytime,
But
anytime.
thank you so much for speaking to me. It's been a pleasure, and good luck in everything you're doing.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.